Yo, adjust my camera here. Happy Friday, the end of the second week for professional development. Let me adjust this a little bit better. Hold on, bear with me. Bear with me. There we go. Um, the PD that we received today was for the textbook that we use through McGraw-Hill. Training could have been better. It was a part of a Zoom meeting. The instructor was basically sharing his screen. He did at least model for us what to do, but it seemed like he was in such a rush that there wasn't a sufficient time to get everything set up. And it was poor timing to do this training because the textbook online that we use is supposed to be connected to our active roster, and because all of that is a hot mess right now, for some of us we had old students, which is cool, but for myself I had 0 students, even though I was here last school year. It hadn't been uploaded in the system that I had any students assigned to me, which could mean a couple of things, but it's just terrible timing and something they should have checked for prior to make sure that we can go through everything. All right, for today's video, so earlier, one of my homegirls, Dr. Foster, on the podcast, the Black Scholars Podcast, sent me a tweet. And the tweet basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, that most teachers and teacher preparation programs do not receive actual training on how to teach or work with students of color, particularly African American students. Now, it's important data-wise that you focus on all subgroups and that you have a strategy for reaching each individual subgroup. African Americans is a very important subgroup of students that you do want to be able to reach. Now, as an African American student, one who did very, very well through K through 12, and one who was intrinsically and extrinsically motivated, I'm not sure that I am the best resource to tell you how to teach black students. I look at black students like I look at any students, but since I can resonate to that flight, I think that's the key thing, is being able to know their flight. Being able to know that with some of these students, they need structure. All students need structure, but they definitely need structure. Some of them, however, already have a lot of structure, and that's how I was going through K through 12. I had structure throughout. So I didn't need my teachers trying to enforce structure to me. I didn't need my teachers yelling at me or being verbally abusive. Some African American students, just like any other race or ethnicity, maybe they do need that. So I'm really hard pressed to say there is a very specific way you're supposed to teach African Americans. The African brain, the black brain, the descendants of Africans, our brain works very, very well. So it's not anything different outside of pedagogy, except I will say black and brown students can see through the BS. Which brings me to the podcast. I've been covering this America to Me documentary, and they're based right outside of Chicago, Illinois, right in Oak Park. And the key takeaway I get from watching this docuseries and analyzing it is that these white teachers sometimes have a feeling that they are about to or that they are tasked with saving black students, which is the furthest from the truth. And it's almost racist, or it is racist, for white Anglo-Saxon Caucasian educators to assume that they are supposed to save the black community, or they're supposed to be the great white knight flight of saving students' life. That's not the case at all, and I'm not sure where they get that from. So if that's your calling, or you feel like that's your purpose because you're a believer in God, you're a Christian, you're whatever, and you've been called to teach, which is great. You've been called to be an educator, which is great, and I feel that same calling, which is why I still do it, which is why I do it, period. But I've never been called to, I'm going to save all African American kids, and I'm black. So please, I'm not sure where you get that from. We do not need that. I do think that is something maybe in the media, whether it's movies or television shows, that has been romanticized and has been extremely fabricated, from movies such as not Higher Learning, but what's the one with what's his name, Sean Connery? What was that? What was that movie? The Rider, the Ghost Rider, the something Rider, and then Freedom Riders. There was a few movies, especially in the '90s, where there was like this white teacher who, started working at Title I inner city urban school, and these kids were really, really difficult. You know the archetype. One of the kids is pregnant and has to suddenly drop out of school, and she's filled with a lot of promise. And then you got the one male student, whether he's black or Hispanic, and he's involved in some gang drug stuff, and one of his friends gets killed, and his life is in danger, or he gets thrown in prison. Like you've seen those movies, you've heard of those movies before. This is real life. Not to say those situations haven't happened in the past, not to say that they don't happen now and they won't happen in the future, but please break that Hollywoodization. Is that a word? Hollywoodization. That fabrication that Hollywood does, and think that's what we need you to do. We don't. It's no different than reaching any other kid. Get to know the kids, be truthful, be authentic, because as I was saying, in America to Me documentary, what you can see in that docuseries is that the black kids, especially the black kids, they can see through the BS. So if you're a white educator or black or brown or whatever you are, and you have that calling on your life where you're there to save them, they see right through it. When you have someone authentic who's mixed, like Mrs. Stovall, she's authentic and wanting to help her students. She explains to them the difference between equality and equity. So I think that's the main thing, is know the difference between equality and equity, regardless of the socioeconomic status of your students and your school and your district. Be prepared to teach and reach all students, and get to know them and reveal some of yourself to them. Now, I'm a very private person, which is ironic because I'm an author and a podcaster and an entrepreneur that depends on social media to build my tribe and community. There's a lot about me that you guys do not know. There's a lot about me that you will never know, just because that's the type of person I am. For example, I let everyone know, first and foremost, I am a father, but I don't post a lot of pictures or videos of my kids. That's intentional. That's my role as a dad, as a protector, to protect them. You have creeps online. I don't want anybody looking at my daughter or my son a certain type of way. That's private to me. And that's not to say that I won't eventually open that side of me up. But right now, at their age, where they're very, very young, no, I'm not opening that up. I know some people don't feel that way. I see people, they're in the delivery room, the baby's still covered in a placenta, and they're posting pictures already. That's just not me. So I'm very private about stuff. I I talk a lot about money. I talk to you guys about money all the time. I talk to you about side hustles all the time, and that's actually the next book that I'm working on. So, you know, I'm open in some ways, and I'm very private in other ways. Very private in other ways. Like, I write thrillers, but I don't write them under my actual name, and that's to protect my career, because some of the stuff I write it can be violent, it can be sensual, it can be, so I protect that side of me. Things that I don't have to protect, I put my name right on it. I don't need a pseudonym. I don't need a writer's pen name for that. So, you gotta protect yourself. You gotta protect your energy. And just because you're on social media doesn't mean that you still shouldn't maintain some level of privacy. Give social media what social media needs, and keep the rest of your life off of that. All right. Anyways, so to summarize, again, that tweet that I read this morning that Dr. Foster sent me, it said TPP, teacher preparation programs, aren't doing an adequate job, sufficient job of preparing teachers, educators, to work with or educate African Americans. And as an African American male, student, scholar, parent, and educator, I am going to argue against that and say there is no difference. The main difference is that they can see through the BS. I know I've taught white students who had anxiety issues. I've taught white students who were depressed. I've taught white students who weren't living up to potential. I taught white students who were underachievers. I taught white students who were terrible workers. They didn't have a solid work ethic whatsoever. They lacked self-efficacy. So, or they came from a family that was highly dysfunctional. They were in poverty. So, and this is all white students. So I can't say there's a special way you teach black students, because each group of kids is a different challenge every year. You can never get stagnant in your approach to teaching them. It's always different. The key is to remain flexible at all times, and avoid the BS, avoid the fluff. Be honest with your kids. Be authentic in the assignments and assessments that you give them. Find a way to make each lesson important to them based on their grade level and age. Keep everything age appropriate. You got some leeway, some wiggle room with high schoolers. You could do a little bit more in relating to them, but you could do the same thing at the middle school level as well too. Same thing at the elementary level. You just have to be careful. We live in a very litigious society where parents are quick to sue a teacher, a principal, a guidance counselor, a school and district, and a city. So be very careful on the videos you show, the movies you implement, the articles, the stories that you let students read, and explain to them that sometimes when it comes to literature, there's going to be some foul language in there. There's going to be some controversial scenes in there. But again, it still has to have a level of age appropriateness. More importantly, it's got to be aligned to standards and be a highly complex text that you're using intentionally to teach them and to help them acquire those literacy skills that they need. And I do apologize for my math teachers and science teachers and whatnot, but I'm literacy focused. So that is what I do. That is what I have mastered. That is what I have honed. But you can apply that yourselves to your particular content area. So, no special way in teaching black kids. Just teach them. Teach them. Be authentic. Reveal some of yourself to them. Learn a lot about them, but even then you have to be careful. You want to control what you know. You don't want a kid being so comfortable to you that, they're telling you all types of stuff going on at home or things that they're doing that their parents don't know that they shouldn't be doing. because I'm pretty sure, according to whatever state you're in, state law, you have to report that to child services and maybe other departments and whatnot too. And that is a legal duty of yours. So you got to be careful. You got to be really, really careful because you just never know. All right, I think that is excellent advice. Please do not forget to follow me on IG, Black Scholars Podcast, Twitter, just type BLK Scholars Pod, Facebook, the Black Scholars Podcast. Of course, subscribe on YouTube. And if you need me, you know how to find me. I'm out.